everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the And Also podcast. I'm Madison, your host, and today's episode is going to be another heavy one. Surprise, surprise, trigger warning. It is what it is at this point, honestly. So we're going to be talking about running from grief, avoiding trauma, and the impact that has on your mental health. So it's a heavy one, but it's definitely super insightful. And I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest today. But before we do that, of course, we need to do our drink of the day. So today's drink is the Spindrift sparkling water. The flavor is blood orange tangerine. And weirdly enough, I'm obsessed with putting cold brew in this, which I'm not going to do today, but take my word for it, a little agave, Chamberlain coffee cold brew, and this, equal parts this to cold brew. I'm telling you, it's the greatest thing ever. The most refreshing, summer coffee drink. Something about citrus and coffee, it does what it needs to do, okay? If you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you, but this is really good on its own too, and my guest loves a good seltzer, so let's get into it. Let's try it. So ASMR. This is so good. It's refreshing. It's just enough citrus, and I'm eating it up. So if you haven't tried this, I really like seltzer, and this is one of my favorites. And mix it with coffee if you can. All right, so for our book of the week this week, I read this a long time ago, so bear with me, but I do want to read it again. It's called Ghosting: A Widow's Voyage Out. It's by Barbara Lazier Ascher. This is a story about grief and death. It's kind of a memoir, and you guys know I love memoirs about death. I think they're really my favorite genre to read because they're so personal, they're so real, and you get to experience somebody's very raw emotions around the topic of grief and their direct experience. And I found with my grieving process, it's been the most comforting book because the self-help grief books can be a little, I don't know, stupid and almost offensive in some ways. It's kind of giving you this formula of how to feel better and how to move on and just close this chapter. And it's not that. And grief is not something you can just turn your back on and move on from, which we'll talk a lot about today. This is kind of Barbara's story about her marriage and her husband's illness and then his death, just having to stare straight into the eyes of grief and just survive it. So if you're looking for just a really incredibly written memoir about grief and love and life and death, this is the one for you. It was one of the first books I read after Regis died. I read The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, and then I think this was the follow-up to that because I was kind of chasing that same feeling that The Year of Magical Thinking gave me, and this was really, really close. So I love it, and I think you guys will love it as well. Okay, so with all of that, let's get into today's episode talking about running from grief and trauma. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, give this video a like, leave a comment. Let me know if you've had a similar experience like what we'll be talking about today. And if you're listening just audio on Spotify or Apple, definitely give the show a rating and download the episode, send it to a friend, and follow us on Instagram. All right, let's get started. I guess we could just get started by you introducing yourself and kind of your relation to today's topic and really what we're going to be getting into today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine O'Donnell. I am a podcast producer. This is my livelihood. I work with people to develop and produce podcasts. And lately, as in the past 7 or 8 years, I have been doing this for people behind the scenes. But in the 10 to 15 years before that, I was in front of the scenes working as a TV news reporter in Los Angeles, New York, Minnesota, Georgia, Boston. I've been around. I worked for NBC News Channel. I have been on CNN, Fox News Channel. I've done a lot of national news correspondence. And then about 5 years ago, I started my own production company, developing and producing podcasts as a business. That is what I do to this day.
And that is how my show is possible. I wanted to interject that because I didn't think you were going to say it.
I wasn't.
But yeah, my show is possible because I work for you and with you, and I get to use your studio, which is amazing. So it's really thanks to you that my show is out there.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I also love that you love this space so much because like a lot of heart and soul went into making this tiny room sound so good, and it does. And I listen to your podcast every week. So
thank you.
And when I say listen, I mean watch, because I enjoy watching it on YouTube.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you want to talk about why you're here today?
No.
You want to get into the nitty gritty, or
I want to run away from it,
which
Madison.
Is
that's
the exact thing.
Point. I don't want to talk about it. I want to pretend it's not there. I want to outrun it, and that is very much something I'm very good at. Like literally in therapy, I don't know. I just always find something else to talk about during the sessions, except for the thing I'm supposed to talk about. And then I learned a phrase recently called doorknobbing. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of this before?
I have.
Yes, because I did it to my therapist, and she's like, you just doorknobbed me. And I was like, I've never heard that. Is that a real word? And she was like, it's among us therapists. We call it doorknobbing when right before your time is up, you bring up this huge thing that you don't want to talk about, but you know you should,
right.
or whether you should or you shouldn't, like you bring it up just in time for you to leave so that you don't actually have to address it, but you feel like you did it because you brought it up.
There.
I just put it out there, and now it's time for me to leave. Okay.
Bye.
And she's like, okay,
week.
So this is where we're starting next week. And I'm like,
then
the
you
next
cancel
week
your appointment.
No, I don't cancel my appointment. I just have all of these other things that I really should talk about, because crises happen every week. And
literally.
So, yeah, this is me actually working on it right now with
this
you.
Is live action.
Live action avoidance. Okay. So when I was young, not that young, but from what I can recall, when I was 14, I just started losing people. And it was awful. And I lost a lot of people in 2 years. And then my parents got divorced. And I'm the oldest of 3 kids. And we all experienced it different ways. We all grieved in different ways. So the first person that we lost was my godmother. And I'm going to cry. Dang it.
That's okay. That's
Madison.
That's what the point of this is.
Oh, don't. Have you made anybody cry?
Yeah. Almost all my guests that have talked about grief have at least cried, or at least got a little, little tear.
The little glisten. Yeah. I want to keep my crying on the inside. So I don't know how well I'm going to do with that. I have begun to heal. So now I cry all the time. When I was locked down, that wasn't happening.
That was a bad time.
So my godmother, her name was Marion, and she was, my aunt, but she was my best friend. I don't know, not that everybody is best friends with your aunt, and not that you can be, but she's the person who knew me before I even knew me. She was just that person who just got my soul, right? She just knew me. The quirky things, the weird things, we just were very similar people. She and I were very close. And she had diabetes, and a number of people on my father's side of the family had diabetes, and it used to be considerably more deadly than it is now, thank goodness. Yeah. But she passed away from complications from diabetes at one point, and my dad came home after he had gone to her home to try and save her, and then put all of us in my bed, in my bedroom, and shared with us that she had died. I felt sad, but I don't think I believed it yet. I just think I was in shock. I don't think I
didn't process. It was that blurry moment of okay, well, that happened, and then you just kind of float through life.
And I remember I was in 6th grade or 7th grade. I was 6th grade. I think, right?
You said you were
I
14?
was 14, so
Maybe seventh grade, yeah.
But I just remember we were reading Tuck Everlasting. Do you know that book?
No.
Well, I'm a different generation. Tuck Everlasting with Winnie and Tuck. It's like a love story. A girl meets boy. Boy had found the fountain of youth and lived forever. And he wanted Winnie to drink the fountain too, so they could be together forever and love each other forever. But she chose not to. And that was like a very confusing thing for Tuck. Like, why would you choose not to live forever and be in love with me forever? And for her, life was so much more precious when it was finite. It meant so much more to be able to grow old and to share those changes with somebody. Like, she wanted to start a family, she wanted to do all of those things, and she couldn't imagine staying young while her kids got old. Like, there was all of these like deeper things that she was thinking of past just being in love and being so happy with this one person who she was like, thought was her soulmate at that point in time in her life. She was a young woman. And I guess for me, because I was reading the book at the time and then this happened, and I just saw how devastated my family was. Like, my dad and her were also very close. And I really feel for people deeply. And that is like so hard when you just like don't want someone else to feel pain. And so I was really just trying to help him feel perspective. And then watching my grandma like grieve the loss of her daughter and like holding her arm as we were walking to see her body in the funeral home, and she just falling down and me like trying to pick her back up and like move forward. It just
now you're gonna make me cry.
It just kind of crushed me.
I know
like,
that exact.
It's like I just feel so much for other people too.
You almost like can't really focus on you. In a way, helping other people helps us, but in a way, it also takes us away from helping ourselves.
Yes,
and that's really hard.
I don't talk about her because I loved her so much, and I don't think I ever really grieved her. She grew up in this town, not too far away from here. It's so surreal to be back
very
here.
Personal, yeah.
Where this, like on the streets that she walked, like doing the things that she did, having coffee at the places she would have coffee. It gets just so weird to be here and have her not here. And this was so long ago, right? Like, I'm an old lady now. And like,
girl.
So I remember like just sharing with people like the Tuck Everlasting. Listen, like life was so much more precious, and she knew that because it was finite. And I don't know, I think I like wrote a passage and like ended up sharing it at some point. And I don't know, I just like was constantly like there for other people. And I find the best way, at least for me in that moment, like to be there for other people is almost just to like show up and shut up. Just like be there, just show up and shut up. Sometimes you don't know what to say, and that's fine. Just be there.
That's the best advice that I always give to people when they don't know what grief is like, but they know someone who's going through it. Like, there's nothing you can say to fix it. You know, no condolences, no, they're in a better place. Like that doesn't fix it. So sometimes you just need to be there to give space.
Yes. Anyway, she died. It was awful.
Really sucked.
But not too long after, we lost my grandma, who I was also very close to. And I don't know, it's like, it's weird, right? I think in some ways, because like these are people who, I don't know, when people talk about their grandparents dying, it's like, oh, well, that's like supposed to happen. So that isn't that big of a deal. But I just, for some reason, the people that I happen to lose were people that I just really felt like deeply close to. Yeah. So she actually, I kind of like made her promise me that she was like going to stay alive for my 16th birthday.
Like, you better not try me, Grandma.
There was an issue. We were actually at my other grandma's home like the night before for dinner, and there was an issue at the hospital, and like we all left, and we like, my grandma had been in the hospital because she had lung surgery and she had complications from her lung surgery, but the lung surgery was like months ago. She was back in the hospital for like another reason, and something had happened, and we don't completely know exactly what had happened, but we went from my one grandma's house to the ER where my grandma was, and they were going to let me in to go see her. like in the ICU and talk to her because she was stable. But like she had a bunch of wires, so they weren't going to let my brother and sister, but they would let me because I was the oldest. And
Right.
I don't know. They just decided to let me.
Yeah.
So while I'm in there, like holding her hands and she's intubated, like she sees me and I like see her like want to protect me from what I'm seeing. And then she has a heart attack. It's not funny. Sorry. It's not funny.
Girl. In that moment?
Yeah, I'm holding her hand, like watching her choke. It's not fun. It's not funny.
It's not silly funny.
It's awful. It was disturbing and awful. And I didn't know what to do because I was still like, I was 15. I'm holding her and I can tell she's scared and like I want to help her and she's trying to like talk to me through this moment and they're like lowering her down and like pulling, like they're like all doing things and I'm just like still holding her hand while all of this is happening. I love you, Grandma.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't know what to do or what to say. I just was like, I wasn't, and it's like beeping and like there's just all of these, there's like beeping and wires and all these things happening and I'm alone in there. Like my parents weren't because they were letting people in one at a time. Anyway, they kicked me out like they do in Grey's Anatomy when they're like, get her out of here. And then like my mom was like freaking out because she didn't know what was going on. And I was just like, I think I was numb. Like I don't remember.
You almost like black out.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling anything, but kind of like frozen in time. We went home that night and went to sleep. And my mom and I planned to like go the next morning to see her first thing. And I had a dream like right before I woke up where like she had come to me in the dream and I like knew already that she had passed. Yeah. Like I just like knew. And so I like woke up and I still felt like in this state of shock, but I like also felt this like sense of peace and calm because I was like she was at peace.
You were very much putting yourself in your grandma's shoes of like, well, at least she's fine. So like you were almost avoiding your own feelings by putting somebody else's in front of yours.
Yes. And also, we had to go. My mom didn't know any of this, right? Because again, like this is all still like pretty much in my head. And so we get in the car and we drive to the hospital and my mom's like saying all of these things. I kind of think she's like Looney Tunes at this point because I'm like, she's not here anymore. Like, but I didn't say any of that because none
like
of it's been confirmed.
Nobody told you.
Right? Like nobody, like, because I'm sure she's in her own state of shock. My mom is also like one of 4. And she's the youngest and she's the only girl. And so she and her mom had a very close relationship.
Right.
So we get to the hospital and as we are walking into the room that I had been in the night before, my aunt and my uncle come out and they like make eye contact with my mom and say like, Deb, she's gone. My mom just like falls to the floor, like screaming. I felt nothing. Like I felt nothing. And then I think I just started like moving through the motions. I remember like hugging my Uncle Bob because that's what you do and standing there and going back in the room and like saying, goodbye and holding her hand and like holding my mom and just like literally just going through all of the motions. There was some more like really difficult stuff that happened after that. It's not completely my story to share, so I don't feel comfortable talking about the stuff that happened, but there were other like difficult things that happened with that group.
Like in relation to those deaths.
Yes. At this point, right? Like I've had 2 like losses kind of back to back, like these 2 people who were really important to me and I cared deeply for.
Right.
I guess like after the first one, I thought like, okay, I'm safe. Like nobody else, nothing bad can happen. And then the next one happened and I was like, well, for sure.
Like now I'm really safe.
I'm really safe because like, the like world, the vibes, right? Like I have to be okay now, right? Like nothing else bad can happen to me. I'm 15. I like deeply loved these people and they got me more than like my own parents got me.
Right.
And now they're gone. And so nothing bad else can happen. And that's not true. More bad stuff happened. So then I lost my Aunt Patty and then my parents went through a separation, and my dad was living with my uncle his brother, who was 10 years younger than him, and I guilt tripped my dad. He and I used to run together, and I like guilt tripped him, like, hey, like, you never run with me anymore, like, da 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 da. Like, and so he was like, okay, I'm coming. Like, I'll come and go for a run with you. And he never showed up. My dad did not arrive, and I started to get like really worried, like something happened. So I started driving because he wasn't also answering any of my phone calls. And so I started driving to find him. Like, I thought maybe he was in a ditch somewhere. Like, I finally ended up hearing from him, and his brother had passed away after he had left. He had gotten halfway to the house and received a call from his mom, who had like gone over just to check on him and found him dead on the couch. He also had diabetes, and he aspirated. He had had an insulin reaction, and he vomited. And then there was a lot of guilt there for me and for my dad. And and then my parents got divorced. And I don't know. I feel like it just was like a lot all happening. Like anything that made me feel safe or stable or understood or cared for at this like point in my life all disappeared. I guess you think that like your parents will be there, but that just wasn't true for me at that time in my life. And it was difficult for my siblings too. So I kind of like rose to the occasion.
Of course, yeah.
And anyway, I really don't talk about this like ever.
Well, I'm really glad you are, because I think everyone needs to talk about it.
It's just one of those things where I like, it's so many, there's just like so many people involved.
And there's like a lot of deep webs too that like just impact your everyday lived experience. There's so many layers of the pain, the guilt, the anger, the confusion, the fight or flight, the lack of feeling safe. It's like now you almost kind of expect that horrible things are going to happen. It can give you a really twisted view on the world.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, experiencing the amount of death I have at my age, it's made me like not the most fun person to be around. And it's hard. There's so many deep kind of horrible layers to it. And yeah, there's the silver linings, but you almost have guilt attached to feeling anything good in these sort of situations. So it's like you have to talk about it.
Or you don't.
And then here's part 2. What happened next?
Like, or you don't have to talk about it. And you can just go. And I would say that's what I did. I don't know. I didn't feel, I didn't think, I didn't really, well, I thought, but I just thought, how do I get out of here?
You took the route of like avoiding that pain. And we'll talk more about this, but, you know, throwing yourself into work or a social life or whatever it is. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just what your brain did?
I don't think it was conscious. I think that I happened to find the right sport at the right time. So I was in a lot of different sports all through high school. And then I found rowing, which is kind of like a weird sport in that you have to like flow with other bodies, right? Like you need to be attuned to the other systems in that boat. You need to understand a stroke. You need to move like 8 people as one unit. It just happened to be something that I was really good at. And I didn't know, but like now looking back, of course, like I was good at it, because like the thing I tend to be good at is understanding other people without even meaning to.
Right.
And so it was quite easy for me to learn and like observe and mimic. And I ended up like going from being brand new to being one of the fastest on the team in a very short period of time, and then ended up getting full scholarship offers and being flown around the country and being recruited by top rowing schools to go there as a D1 scholarship athlete. So
instead of worrying about your pile of trauma, essentially, I mean, even just the heart attack situation is enough to like traumatize someone horribly. But you had that on top of all the death, your parents, all the other stuff going on. So instead of like looking at that and dealing with that, of course it's easier to be like, look at this opportunity. Let me run with this. Let me go in this direction.
Yeah. So I did. I went in that direction, and ended up accepting a full ride scholarship to the University of Minnesota. Like, you're going to notice, like, peak performance was, like, very important to me. Like, I was on the National Honor Society. Like, I was in, like, several AP classes.
Right,
I
just doing all the
like,
things.
you know, graduated with, like, the extra, like, orange cables around. I don't even remember what it was called. So then I went off to college and I, you know, did all the internships and I did all the things. I majored in journalism. I ended up winning Big Tens every year. I competed at the University of Minnesota with the other women in my boats. And in 2007, we won NCAAs. So, like, I was pretty good at rowing. You know, it was really important to get a job in your career field after you graduate from school. And I think I went 2 weeks without a job after I graduated before I was offered a job at the station I had been interning at, which was the top TV news station in the Minneapolis news market. And I ended up working there right after college. So I ended up getting another job offer to work at a TV news station in Augusta, Georgia. That tended to repeat itself over and over again.
It was first the sports, and then it was the college, and then it was the career, and
then it was also a career that was very traumatic in ways that I wasn't even like thinking at first, but then like ended up being quite good at when it comes to showing up and shutting up, right? Like, because there I am on the worst day of your life as a TV news reporter.
Everyone I've talked to about grief it's not the same, but it's similar in the sense that they tend to find careers or lean towards things where they get to amplify other stories of grief or be around other stories of grief. Aaron was talking about it too. Like, you know, he is more excited to report on a story that has something to do with somebody that died and to sit there with the family and to be there to hear their initial thoughts and just to be involved in sharing that story. So I think there's always that desire after losing people to be around other people who have lost people, because it is a comfort. And no matter how far we run from it, it's there. It's something that's going to come up over and over again until you look at it in the face and you're like, okay, everything I've done to this point has been impacted by it. And now what? And that's intense. The first time I dealt with death was when I was 16. One of my friends died of a heroin overdose. He was actually really, really, really close with Regis, who wound up committing suicide years later. So I kind of lost two people that were very foundational. They were like rocks in my life, and both of them were gone. And, you know, that was our friend circle. I felt this incredible guilt of like, wow, I've outlived two people who have always been older than me, who I've always looked up to, who I've always been around. But that first experience, I didn't feel it for 5 years. I remember it happened. I remember going to the wake, going to the funeral, being there with his family, being there for his younger siblings, taking them to the cemetery to visit him, you know, just being there on their worst days and not feeling it, because I just wanted his sisters to be okay. I just wanted them to feel supported. I just wanted to make sure we're still celebrating his birthday every year. We're still, you know, including him in holidays and celebrations. We're still making sure that he is here still in whatever way he can be. And that was great in many ways. And I'm so glad that, you know, they were able to have a space to feel those feelings that they wouldn't have had otherwise. As a very empathetic person, how do you ignore those people who very clearly need support and love? My coping mechanism for that was to just be there for everybody else. And somehow I thought that would heal me, and it didn't. And so 5 years later, it was the anniversary of his death, and I was with Regis, and we were going to go visit him, visit his grave and stuff. And we got there, and both of us just like fully broke down. Like, it was a moment of like, wow, it's really been half a decade, and like, we're not fine. We're nowhere near fine. And, you know, just being so young and dealing with those huge feelings, you don't know where to begin. You don't know where to put them, what to do with them, how to face them. So you just keep going. And there's so much in your life there to distract you. So why not? So then, you know, now it's been, it's been like 8 years-ish. It's to the point where I'm like, I can't really even remember how long it's been since he died. And I'm finally at a place where like I've dealt with it. But it took almost a decade. And it caused a lot of like mental trauma and just instability in my life. So then Regis died, and it was like, wow, the one person, we would still celebrate Jake's birthday every year. We would still go visit Jake's grave. We would still do all those things together. And now he's not here either. Now I'm going to Jake's grave alone. I'm bringing this jar of ashes that's allegedly supposed to be Regis to Jake's grave with me. I think Regis, it was a whole different experience of death because it was suicide, it was schizophrenia, it was really complicated. But it really woke me up, and it really made me look at not only the past deaths I've had, but literally everything in my life, and reevaluate and just say like, who am I? What is the point of this? What am I doing? And how do I make life not so miserable? Because I can't run from this. And if I run from this like I did when Jake died, I'm literally going to kill myself. And that's where it's going to end up. And so it was like a very conscious decision of like, do I kill myself or do I just figure out today? So that's my really fun story. But yeah, that's my story of deaths. And even in the web of that, there was a lot of other deaths. There was like a mutual friend who died of a Xanax overdose. There was the death of my Nana. There was a lot of other stuff, but it's almost like, those were the two that literally killed me and created this new version of me that I'm still figuring out, like, who is this person? Who is this person that I'm literally existing as every day? And it's very easy to just turn my back on that and be like, you know what? I'm going to work. I'm going to move to the city. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to get a cat. I'm going to have a new boyfriend. I'm going to go out with my friends and do all these things. But at the end of the day, when I'm alone, it's always the first thing that pops into my head.
I just really relate to that. It's so easy to just like keep going. It's just so much easier. For me, it was just so much easier to just fill my life with things to do.
Yeah.
Then and continue to like feel other people's grief rather than ever address my own. Was starting to realize how bad I was at being alone and how any moment I had of like peace wasn't actually a moment of peace. I found a new way to dissociate so I didn't have to feel feelings, whether that's scrolling on my phone.
Oh, the easiest distraction.
Or whether it's like binge watching a show.
Yep.
Or just like finding literally anything to not actually be present in the moment.
Yeah.
And for me, like one of the questions that's on your list is like, why did you choose to like address this issue? And for me, I realize how precious and finite these times are in my children's lives. And I don't want to numb myself to actually being present to life with them. So it's so easy to just, it's not, I don't know if that's the right word, but like I was finding myself looking for ways to not feel while I was with them, not feel love for them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about in the moments of quiet where my mind has a moment to wander and possibly get to a place where I feel sad. I was looking for a way to avoid that. So to avoid that, I felt worried that I wasn't going to be present in my children's lives. And the one thing that I always felt was so important when people started falling away for me, and granted, I was considerably older, was just like to be there, like just be there. Again, show up. Just like, can you tell what my love language is? Anyway,
I think you have a few love languages.
I do. I think we all do, but I've like got one like really big one. But anyway, it just, so I wanted to stop that dissociation. And so that's why I ended up finally like seeking some help. There was a moment for me where it all came to a head.
Okay.
A very big moment. And I was avoiding talking about it. I had gotten Steve and I, who you know, my husband, also a TV news reporter. We actually met in college. So he and I, went on to get married and all of those things. And we were looking to move from Los Angeles back to the East Coast to start our family. And so I ended up getting a TV news reporter position at a station in Boston. One day I got a call while it was like my weekend. It was like Tuesday and Wednesday was my weekends. And so I had come from Boston back here, and my friend Crystal and I had gone to get an Auntie Annie's pretzel. She was pregnant. She wanted an Auntie. I mean, I was like, yes, let's go get pretzels. So we went there, and I get a call from my agent. And he's like, Christine, you've got to take down the video. I'm like, what video? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, the video you have. I'm like the one of the guy, like, following me, like that I was recording like the other morning from the morning live shot. And he's like, no, the one of you in bed. And I'm like, what video are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, so I had done like a silly video that I had posted, I think on my Facebook page. And it was a video of me making fun of myself for going to work too early. Back up, what's the story here? So I was working at the station in Boston for 2 weeks. I had been on the morning shift, which means like you have to be there at 2:30 in the morning. So hair, makeup, ready for your live shot, go. And so I show up at the station at 2:30, and they had changed my schedule the night before from morning show to dayside, right? Like it's like an easy mistake. I show up to work. They're like, haha, you're here too early. Come back at 10. And I was like, well, this stinks. So I went home, and I like didn't want to mess up my hair or makeup, but I definitely wanted to get some sleep before my like full day shift. So I laid in bed, and I tried not to move because I didn't want to mess things up. Like, if you're up at midnight doing your hair and makeup.
Like, we're not redoing this.
No,
we're not
I did
redoing
not
this.
want to redo it. Once you've hairsprayed, like you don't want to have to do it again. So I tried not to move. I woke up at 7:30, I moved, and I looked like a wreck, right? And so something I do, like still to this day, I might have sent you these things too, but like I recorded a video like saying like, good morning to Steve, like I love you, like it's my morning, it's not your morning, this silly thing happened, and I just wanted you to know. And I sent it to him, and I just like thought it was like a funny thing that he would then wake up to because he was working nightside in LA. And I just thought it was funny. So I re-recorded like a similar video, and that is what I posted. And I was like, hey, I woke up like this, ha ha ha. It's like, this is what happened. I showed up to work too early, and now I have to go back to work, and I tried not to move, but I moved, and ha ha ha. Like, hope you're having a better start to your week than I am. So that's the video that my agent was talking about. And so I go ahead and I like delete it like while I'm on the phone with him and, take it down. He's like, yeah. And I was like, this really isn't a big deal. That was like a silly video. It's nothing. Like, and he's like, no, it's not nothing. Like FTV Live did a story about you. And I'm like, what? Like, what's FTV Live? Like, I didn't even know about like, there's like these insider TV news blogs.
Right.
And I had never been featured on it before. I'd been in Los Angeles. I just wasn't, I guess, newsworthy until this moment, which I later found out somebody at the station had sent this purposefully to this guy to get the story posted. And the story was reframed as like, Fox reporter doing social media in her underwear from her bed. That was not true, one. And two, It is what ultimately ended up getting me fired. So shortly after that call with my agent, like I was still on the phone with him when I get a call from the news director. And so I'm like, oh, like I got to answer this other call. It's the news director calling. And so I literally am like on the phone with him, like in shock, right? And I'm like pleading with him, like, I think this is so trivial. Like it's like nothing. Like how could this one thing be about to get me fired? He fires me over the phone, and I honestly like don't remember what happened. But I know that I fell to the floor screaming. And I think it was like the moment in which I realized I had been trying to use my career to outrun all of my feelings. And everything I worked for in that one moment, because of a silly, goofy video I posted, was all taken away, and my reputation was tarnished. there was nothing I could do. And I don't remember. I don't remember how we got back home. I don't remember like the rest
The
of that
blackout
day.
period.
Yeah, I just...
And you know what's so interesting is your reaction, falling to the floor and screaming, is the same reaction you mentioned of somebody else's reaction to the deaths in your life.
Well, it was my grandmother's and my mom's.
Yeah.
And I just like never had that reaction. Before this, I had covered Sandy Hook. I had covered the Boston Marathon bombings. I had covered Elliot Rodger's attack on Santa Barbara. Then I was at San Bernardino at the hospital, like as they're bringing in people. And then I'm like I have experienced and witnessed real, awful tragedy. I've talked to parents. I've seen things I wish I could unsee. And I had just found a way to, I was present in those moments with those people, but then never felt it again.
There's like a complete disconnection.
Yes. And it's like it all just like came crashing down.
Yeah, and I think that moment
Yes.
was a accumulation of everything.
Yeah.
I don't think your reaction was only about your job. I think it was about everything you lost.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
From the time you were 14 on.
Yeah. I think that is what my therapist thinks too.
It makes sense. I like your therapist.
So yeah, it just is a lot. It's a lot. And then moving back here during the pandemic just like re-triggered a lot.
It's like opening the wound.
Just like all these things that I thought I had forgotten.
So this is a place for you that's very much associated with a lot of the trauma you experienced. So coming back here is reopening that wound on top of feeling all the things, on top of losing your career. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I mean, I had a very similar experience moving back here after Regis died. It's like, wow, I can't even eat at this restaurant because we ate at this restaurant. And like, why should I be eating at this restaurant when we did this and he's not here and this is unfair? And everything is like
A reminder.
It's a reminder, and the world is just tinted a different color because of it.
Yeah. And I don't know how to like not feel the feelings in the places that I felt them before.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how to not do that.
And I don't think you need to not do that because I think feeling the feelings is...
Oh, yeah, we're supposed to.
That's what we're supposed to be doing, and that's the whole point of today's episode. So then what? Now what? And where did you go from that point? And did that realization bring you to continue to cope, or did that realization push you deeper into the spiral of the productivity?
I mean, I think that it is very much something that I will have to continue to work on because I think something that I'm learning is maybe I don't know who I am.
The big question is...
I'm so good at feeling what other people need me to be in that moment.
You're very like malleable to the situation.
Yeah. So who am I?
It's like, who's Christine? And don't answer mom. Don't answer TV news reporter. Don't answer podcast producer. What is your answer then?
Who are you without all of those things? Because I feel like it has been really like a learning experience.
Yeah.
And so I've been on this like effort to find these things, like to figure out what are things that I enjoy doing for me. That is very much me. And who am I now? Because this version of me is different than the versions that I remember before the things that happened. It's been actually, well, at first it was quite difficult and daunting, but it's been fun. Like I'm going to the gym more. And I've been trying to work on healing my relationship to the gym. So it's not like I have to go for this many hours and I have to have this kind of PR because this is what is necessary for me to even like remotely consider myself athletic, right? Like I'm just trying to go to the gym to move my body and have fun because health. And now I like the sauna and I've been going to the sauna and I really enjoy it. It gives me good skin, I hear. Can you believe that? So yeah, I don't know. I've just been working on finding out what I enjoy. And I also think that I have been vicariously working on healing myself through creating this company. I know that I'm a really good listener.
Yeah.
And I know that like there are things that I really enjoy doing, and I really do enjoy connecting with people. I think that that is kind of the point of life. Like if every connection we make can be a good one, I think that means we've had a good life.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of the point.
I mean, it's
So,
really all we've got at the end of the day. It's like,
yeah.
as long as you are creating moments that make you want to continue doing all this and continue coping and continue learning and growing, what else are you going to do, you know?
And I'm also, I think, a little addicted to learning. I love
I
learning.
literally love it.
I'm fascinated by people, and I love people who are different than me and who think differently than me. And I just like want to understand their minds. And then I realize it's because of those differences that the world is a better place, because we all complement each other in one way or another. And I didn't mean to know these things, and I didn't mean to feel these ways. And I didn't actually mean to start this whole production company. I didn't, like, there are things that I didn't mean to happen. Well, I mean, some of it was purposeful, and some of it was very much driven by rage and even like vengeance.
Yeah.
But where I am now is not necessarily driven by that. It's driven more by, I just really enjoy learning. Madison, I have shared things with you that I haven't even gotten to in therapy yet.
Yay.
So I am just now like really starting to realize how I have tried to outrun these things for all of these years.
Yeah.
Like there was my moment where I fell, right, in the mall and then don't remember anymore. And I did go into like a deep dark hole where I watched a lot of Gilmore Girls and ate a lot of ice cream. I started going to therapy in Los Angeles. Didn't spend enough time because by April I was working at a marketing company, right? Like so I just found a way to get back into running. And for me, I would say motherhood kind of has forced some things upon me in ways that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Everything seems to kind of come into perspective in a new way when you have a little child to keep alive. I want them to feel like cherished and cared about, because I also remember loving that hard and then having that dissipate.
Right.
And so I think that if you're someone like me and you keep just trying to prove to yourself that you're good, you're doing well, and that you've earned whatever it is that you're trying to earn, you probably have already earned it. like
a while ago.
There's probably something else going on. And I think for me, when I was tasked with like trying to figure out who I am without all of the labels and what I like doing, and it can't be work, that is something that has really helped me find answers in ways that I wasn't expecting and explore new creative parts of myself that I'm enjoying exploring. I have a long way to go. Like I am just at the beginning of my healing process and I'm working on it, and I'm invested in working on that. Like there are ways, there are communities, there are people. Something I find is there's people a lot like me everywhere.
Literally
I almost
everywhere.
feel like we're drawn to each other.
We're magnets for each other.
Right? Like we just find each other and then we're like, wow. And I really feel that way, actually. I feel like Bright-Sided is in part becoming a little bit of that. It's like...
Yeah. like everyone's got like, something going on.
And we're just... But like, it's really nice to like empath with each other because it's like... We're creating this safe space, and it's not just me. It's like it's lot everybody. Of people are creating safe spaces.
Yeah, and we also have such an ability to be honest with each other in a non-hurtful way.
Yeah,
and that's a skill that grief has taught me, of like being honest with myself, and being nicer to myself at the same time. And that's a hard thing. And unfortunately, there are good things that come from grief, and that sucks on one hand. But on the other hand, you know, you have to take those good moments and run with them. So like, what advice, if any, do you have for somebody who might be coming to that realization of like, wow, I've been running from this thing and it's time to do something about that?
I think that there's a lot of different ways that it can go. And when I say that, I mean, I think that the news industry, the documentary industry, maybe even just the creative space industry, it tends to attract a lot of people who have experienced grief. With that, sometimes there can be like addiction issues. There can be other kinds of ways that you abuse yourself. And instead of doing those things,
and those things are easy to do when
I'm just saying, as somebody who, like, I see the allure.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
And instead of doing that, I try to just be a little bit better every day. And I just try to have a good connection with somebody every day.
Make a new friend, as you always say.
Make a new friend. And it's because we all have something. Like, we all of us have something. And so if you could just be the reason someone else smiles today, or little things make a big difference. And I just, I don't know. I just listen to a podcast that can help you. Read a book.
Do something, like something so simple, whether it's listening to a podcast, watching an old cartoon, like something that just makes you feel
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like if you're feeling anxious, there's something about moving to a new space. There's something about getting out of that room.
Yes. Like just move someplace. And I think that giving yourself something like a reward while you're moving, whether it's music, whether it's a podcast, whether it's watching a video on your phone, or even like scrolling while on the elliptical at the gym.
Or getting a little sweet treat.
Or getting a sweet, like just get up, get out, and get something done.
Yeah. Whether you have to tell yourself 1,000,000 times a day or put it on a sticky note or like literally say it out loud over and over again, feeling your feelings doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you've lost progress. It doesn't mean you're unworthy. It just means that you're human and you're doing the thing that we're meant to do.
I actually think every time I cry, it's a win.
It is.
Every time I cry, it's like success.
I love crying. I love a good like little sob all alone, hunched over my computer.
In the shower.
Yeah, it's the best.
Curled up on the floor.
Like literally like with my cat just curled up like, Gio, why? He's like, girl, I don't know. I just want my tuna.
You're not in the shower with Gio.
No. Well,
thank you for having me, Madison.
Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed this, and I'm so proud of you for opening up.
Thank you for asking good questions.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the And Also podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to rate the show, download it, and of course, follow the show and share it with a friend. Thank you guys once again for watching. I hope you learned something from today's conversation, and I will see you next week for another episode.